The house is quieter than it has been in decades. The bedrooms that once echoed with laughter are now neatly made. The calendar is suddenly empty. Dinner for 4 has become dinner for 2. Across the table sits someone you've shared half a lifetime with. Yet the silence feels strangely unfamiliar. It's not that love disappeared overnight. It's that the routines, which kept 2 people moving in the same direction, quietly came to an end. For many couples, this is the moment they discover they no longer know each other as partners. They only know each other as parents. There are 4 hidden reasons why so many marriages begin to unravel after the children grow up. None of them happen suddenly. They develop slowly, often unnoticed, over years of good intentions, sacrifices, and changing identities. Psychologists have long observed that shared challenges can strengthen relationships. Raising children certainly creates a powerful shared mission. Every day demands teamwork. Schedules, homework, illnesses, finances, celebrations, and endless decisions. The relationship becomes highly functional because it has to. But functionality isn't the same as intimacy. Family researchers, including those influenced by the work of John Gottman, have shown that lasting marriages depend not only on solving problems together, but also on maintaining curiosity about each other's inner world. Yet many couples unintentionally postpone that curiosity. We'll travel when the kids are older. We'll spend more time together later. Later eventually arrives. Then an unsettling question appears. Who are we when nobody needs us anymore? This isn't necessarily a failure. It's an identity shift. For years, both partners may have invested so much energy into being dependable parents that they gradually stopped investing in being interesting companions. Conversations became logistical. Affection became scheduled. Shared dreams quietly gave way to shared responsibilities. The children leave home. The responsibilities leave with them. And for the first time in years, the marriage stands alone, without the structure that had been holding it together. But that's only the first layer of the story. Most marriages don't collapse because of one dramatic event. They weaken under the weight of hundreds of conversations that never happened. Psychologists sometimes describe this as the accumulation of unresolved emotional injuries. Rarely are these explosive betrayals. More often, they're small disappointments, repeated over years. The promotion one partner declined for the family's sake, the hobbies quietly abandoned, the emotional support that never came during difficult seasons, the appreciation that was assumed instead of expressed. While the children are growing up, those feelings often remain buried beneath constant activity. There simply isn't time to examine them. Then life slows down. Silence has an unusual property. It gives forgotten emotions room to speak. A husband may realize he spent 20 years defining himself almost entirely as a provider, believing financial security was the clearest expression of love. His wife may have been longing less for another paycheck and more for emotional presence. Neither intention was wrong, but intentions don't automatically become understanding. The reverse can be equally true. One partner may have carried the emotional labor of the household so naturally that the other never recognized its weight until the routine disappeared. Research on long-term relationships consistently finds that resentment grows less from conflict itself than from conflict that remains unresolved. Couples who respectfully repair misunderstandings tend to remain resilient. Those who avoid difficult conversations often allow emotional distance to become a permanent habit. By the time the children have built lives of their own, many spouses are no longer arguing very much. From the outside, that looks like peace. In reality, it can be indifference, a far more dangerous place for a marriage to live. And this reveals something even more surprising. Sometimes the greatest challenge isn't what was said over the years, but everything that remained unsaid. No one remains the same person across 30 or 40 years. The man who walked into marriage at 28 is not the same man at 58. The same is true for his wife. Experience reshapes priorities. Success changes confidence. Loss changes perspective. Even the brain continues to adapt as people accumulate new habits, relationships, and ways of seeing the world. The question isn't whether people change. It's whether they continue discovering each other as they do. Many couples assume that history guarantees closeness. Yet relationship researchers have repeatedly found that emotional intimacy depends less on how long two people have been together and more on how actively they remain engaged with one another's evolving inner lives. While raising children, personal growth often happens quietly and independently. One partner develops new interests through work. The other finds purpose in volunteering, education, friendships, or creative pursuits. Neither notices the growing distance because daily family life keeps them moving in parallel. Then the children leave. The parallel tracks disappear. For the first time in years, each partner looks across the room and realizes they're sitting beside someone who has changed in ways they never fully witnessed. This moment can feel frightening, but it also reveals something deeply human. We often expect commitment to preserve familiarity, when in reality commitment requires continual rediscovery. Anthropologists have long noted that human relationships thrive through shared stories and shared meaning, not simply shared history. History explains where a couple has been. Meaning determines whether they still want to walk toward the same future. And this changes everything, because some couples mistake change for incompatibility, when the real problem is that they stopped introducing themselves to each other long ago. The final reason is perhaps the most overlooked of all. It isn't about conflict, resentment, or growing apart. It's about the surprising role that purpose itself plays once the central mission of raising children comes to an end. For years, the family had a clear destination. There were school schedules to manage, bills to pay, birthdays to celebrate, problems to solve, and dreams to support. Every decision pointed toward the same purpose, helping the next generation thrive. Purpose has a remarkable psychological effect. It organizes attention, creates momentum, and gives daily sacrifices meaning. When two people are working toward the same goal, they often feel connected, even if they spend very little time nurturing the relationship itself. Then, almost overnight, the mission is complete. The children have built lives of their own. The house is quiet. The calendar is no longer full. What remains is not simply empty time. It is an unanswered question. What is our purpose now? Developmental psychologist Erik Erikson described later adulthood as a stage where people search for meaning beyond the roles that once defined them. Couples who successfully navigate this transition often create a new shared identity. They become travelers, mentors, grandparents, business partners, volunteers, lifelong learners, or simply two people curious enough to build another chapter together. Others struggle because they unknowingly expected the relationship to survive on memories alone. But memories can explain why two people stayed together. They cannot decide why they should keep growing together. The strongest long-term marriages are rarely those that avoided change. They are the ones that repeatedly chose a new purpose each time life demanded one. They understood that love is not preserved by standing still. It is renewed whenever two people continue building something that neither could create alone. And perhaps that's the quiet truth hidden behind so many empty nest divorces. The children didn't end the marriage. They simply revealed whether the marriage had continued, growing beneath the responsibilities of parenthood. Perhaps the greatest misconception about long marriages is that time alone keeps two people together. Time creates history. It does not automatically create connection. When the children leave home, the marriage is no longer protected by routines, responsibilities, or shared obligations. It stands on something far more revealing: whether two people have continued choosing to know one another through every season of life. For some couples, the empty nest becomes the beginning of the end. For others, it becomes the first chapter written entirely for themselves. The difference is rarely luck. More often, it's the willingness to replace old roles with a new shared purpose, to exchange assumptions for curiosity, and to keep discovering the person who has been sitting across the table all along. If this perspective made you see long-term relationships in a different light, consider subscribing for more documentary-style explorations of psychology, marriage, and the hidden patterns that shape our lives. Because sometimes, understanding human nature is the first step toward understanding ourselves.